in payments that are due for debt service. So that includes everything from, now it's being paid through taxation and also through our utility rates. So that's what's being funded as part of this budget.
Still on the 317?
Yes, sir.
What did they say is the reason for the decline?
I have not,
We gained staff and all that?
well, remember, STEC is part of what payment in lieu of taxes, so that's not included in the values. So my assumption, and I haven't asked I didn't get a chance to ask the chief appraiser. My assumption is probably minerals interest, but I'd have to check with him because that's the only thing I can think of is that there was a drop in mineral values. That's what I'm sure affected everybody in the school district and the county is a loss of minerals, and of course they have a lot more out there than we do in the city.
I don't think it's property values. I mean, I don't.
Well, it's all property values. It's
You mean residential?
Residential.
right. Yeah, you're right. It's probably in our minerals and maybe some business, maybe some personal property. Maybe again, I haven't verified that with the chief appraiser, but there is a drop, and I think the county, if I'm not mistaken, one of the commissioners mentioned there's like over $200 million in value that they lost. $200 million. So I know it's for us it's a lot for the city, right? And I can only imagine for them it's a lot as well.
Councilwoman, you sit on that board, did they discuss anything as to what?
They haven't yet. I mean, I know we have a meeting, we'll have another meeting here pretty soon.
And I'll get that information. I didn't get a chance to get around to calling the chief appraiser, but I'll call him and ask, and I'll take a better look of all of the values and see if I can come up with an answer. Again, we're on year 2 of our utility rate increases. Year 2, if you look at the utility ordinance, that was approved by the city council last year, and it's a 5-year analysis of our rate structure. If council recalls, last year we did away with the surcharge, and this was part of this discussion. So part of it again was to say, hey, we know we need to recover some additional the dollars that we may have lost for not having the surcharge anymore. So this is a way to try to figure this out. I will tell the council on this end, I think it's something to point out is as we look at tax rates, again, what I mentioned, I think, to the mayor, is that you do have some of the lower utility rates in the entire state. I would mention, definitely for sure in the area. And I'm saying that with the understanding that it is relatively cheap to have utility services here. And I think Mr. Snowden provided that comparison last year of just the counterparts here in around Pearsall. But anyway, that's something that to consider. In saying all that, I mean, for us, at least for me, at least this year, I will say it's a positive thing. I think this, for me, this is the best I felt as far as the budget and trying to get some things approved. We actually have, in my opinion, a little more breathing room this year. But at the same time, we know that there's still some unpredictability. So we're pleased. I'm pleased, at least as far as the budget, more so than I have been in the past 2 years that I've been here. And so what we're proposing this year was the increase of staff, which was 8 new positions, which includes 3 police officers, 1 parks employee, 1 assistant for me, a / permanent clerk, and then 2 water employees and 1 utility supervisor. That number, as far as the total increased staff, I think was a little over $300,000 for those additional positions. The recommendations for the compensation and classification study are also included in that. I do want to give the council one thing, because I think there's a question that came up, or maybe a couple of questions that came up to the compensation study, and I don't expect the council to address this tonight, but this is for bits and pieces and details. This is, I think there was a question about base pay and how that came to be. But this is something that I want to make sure, this is a tool for the staff to use, but I wanted to share it with the council, how we came to base pay. and the analysis, and so, hang on, listen.
Thank you, sir.
So again, I won't get into all the details to that tonight, but I do want to point out to the council that there was, in my opinion, significant consideration to base pay and other factors. The other thing is that's in the budget, as the council is aware, is the $300,000 in street maintenance. And so with that, I know we've identified some roads, and I would like to, if the council approves of that, this particular line item, is to go back and look at some of the roads that we want to pave. We feel confident, I'm going to say this with all the confidence, that we can do the work. And maybe partnering some with the city, with the county, but we feel we can do the work as it relates to street maintenance. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hector, we're saying we can do it, right?
Say we can do it.
So we think we can handle the work, and so.
Mr. Reyes, was that not 600,000?
It was.
What's going on?
Well, again, if we do the $600,000, and this is part of the discussion, is, there's gonna have to be some cut somewhere else. Where else do we cut? And so that what I'm thinking on that end is, what do we cut? And if it's position of
I think you need to lay it all out so that we can make those decisions.
right. That's part of
Yeah,
it.
when we originally talked about that, that was one of the things he said, the thing that we would probably move on the most was that 600,000 and cut it to 3. That was mentioned when we talked about it earlier as an option. But if you guys will turn, anyway, that complete list is there, which reflects everything that has changed and the things that Fred was talking
As
about.
you recall, again, it's part of the presentation that actually I alluded to, is there were no personnel, there was no additions, at the preliminary budget, there was no additions to personnel. So what I was hoping with the council is to say, okay, we're looking at these positions, and if it means cutting positions or cutting other things, then we're prepared tonight to address those changes. But I do want to point out some of the changes that were made. You're right, it was $600,000. The other thing, and as the council, the item's not included, and this is something, again, that looking at this, there's nothing in the budget currently, because another decision hasn't been made for municipal court judge for a full-time position. So that's not in the budget. That's what the dollar amount is going to be included. There is no funding set aside for the fire marshal, no animal control officer, or health inspector. If you look at the pillars that we addressed, that were part of our retreat, those were requested. Now, again, we know that we can't fund everything, but those are part of the additional things that we looked at. So what we did, in essence, is we tried to address the mile markers at each of the strategic pillars addressed at the council retreat, which is in your packet. But we also recognize that we have funding constraints, and some of the mile markers, in essence, will have to be adjusted, because we can't address everything, right? But we do our part, or try to do our part, to address the pillars that we discussed on the 10th of July. And I think the pillars are in here on page, I'm trying to figure out where this is at here. But
Got 2 pages in front of visions and goals. In front of-
yeah, but there's the actual, Crystal, there's the actual pillars themselves. Here they are, yes. They're on page, they're very close to the end of the, part of the pillars was planning, comprehensive plan, maintaining financial stability, partnering with entities, promoting economic development, ensuring public safety. Part of the planning for the comprehensive plan was to allocate funding for that. They identify the needs, prioritize projects, begin construction. Again, that was part of our discussion. Maintaining financial stability, have our audits on time. We commit to funding allocations tied to CMP. Budget excellence, operation capital needs, follow through, following through. Partnering with entities was another. Promoting economic development was the other. And then the last one was ensuring public safety. And part of that was add a fire marshal, add animal control, add a health inspector, police preparation, staffing overall, all city safety and management were all part of our pillars.
Fred, I got a question.
Yes,
What are we going to do to create more revenue? I mean, I hear that we're trying to increase taxes, increase this. Right now, we just got done with the pandemic that we're still in. People are still being affected, and we want to raise taxes, which I think is a bad idea. Especially with what we've been through in the past, 2 years? I see different departments here that are year-to-date, compared to what the budget is, and they're asking for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 more. Personally, I would like to see more money going to streets, because as we can see, we probably got the worst streets in South Texas, which is a shame, especially when people come into the city. And I've been made a comment, y'all should just get a big billboard, paint something, because everything else looks like whatever. And that's insulting, especially for someone that was born here and raised here. And I would like to see more put into our streets, our infrastructure and stuff like that. What are we going to do to create more revenue? What are we going to do to retain more employees? It's my understanding also, we're asking for 3 officers. It's my understanding that we're losing officers as it is right now, and we can't fill those positions. Or maybe, it's on the wait, but if we're losing officers, but we're asking for more officers, what are we gonna do to maintain that? What are we gonna do to maintain what we have now?
those are good questions. Absolutely. To me, again, Council, as far as revenues, and we can touch on this more, but as Council knows, the major sources of revenues for any taxing entity is that taxation. There is no that in your utility structure. As far as the city government is concerned, our utility system is our revenue generator. It's our form of business. But with that, again, part of the other discussion we've had is when these entities are not making money as they should. For instance, our utility system is our water and wastewater are making money in order to keep them operating. However, on the gas system, we're losing money. And so the question is posed and been posed is what do we do to capture that revenue, to increase rates?
How do we make our system more efficient?
Right. Part of what I would suggest, and I think I mentioned it to the mayor this afternoon when we spoke, is one of the things I would recommend is our meters. And I know it's been an issue. It's been an issue for at least 3 years. But our meters, for sure, on the water and wastewater side, I would recommend that we use some of the ARP money to repair the ones that we need to repair, particularly the ones that are commercial meters. Our bigger meters are 2 inches or bigger. You have meter sizes that for commercial use that are 2 inches or bigger, which you have 2 to 6 inches. And you have a prison system that has 6-inch meters. You have school districts that has 4-inch meters. So that means that their consumption of water is more than that of a residential customer. So what I'm suggesting is that we repair those meters. Now, on the back end, and part of what our discussion was is we make those repairs and those fixes, is that you're gonna see consumption, their consumption is, these users, the consumption is gonna be whatever it is. We have a significant water loss here, a water loss problem here in Pearsall. And part of that, I'm not saying the entirety, but a lot of it is because meters aren't, they're old and they're not working the way they should be. Now, in saying that, part of our commitment or what we've gotten into with this company that installed these meters is, in my opinion, and I've shared this with the city attorney, to me was a poor project. And we didn't get our bang for our buck. Now, I can't fix what's been done already, but I can say this is what I would recommend to the council, is look at repairing those meters, getting new meters in there, particularly on the commercial side, and then replacing the gas meters, or looking at ways to sell the utility system, the gas system that is, because that is a cost that's going to continue. It's being supported by water and wastewater customers. So if you lose $150,000 to $200,000 a year on gas because one, our meters are not working the way they should, or 2 is we don't have enough customers, our customer base with meters for gas is less than half of our water customers, something? Or,
About, got about 700.
we have, I think we have maybe 700 to 800 customers on gas, and
Do
so.
we have to buy more gas than what we have?
No, it's actually turns into, it's like anything else, council member, the fewer customers you have, the more it's gonna cost that one customer. So what I'm getting at is right now we have 2,000 something water customers. That cost can be spread out because you have that many more customers. When you have just 700 customers and you have to maintain and keep up with the utility system, that cost is gonna go to those, that should go to those customers because they have gas and that's the service that they're utilizing. But to do that, you have to increase rates and repair the meters, and then hope that you increase your customer base in the process. So those are the challenges from my end. But the council member is right, is the revenue loss, that it is an issue, and it's something that we definitely need to address, because we know that we're pumping water out of the ground. To be quite frank, but we don't know where it's all going. We don't know.
I'd like to address that. That's a great question, James, and something too that relative to that, it's a tremendous question. And two, talking to Fred, there is some revenues we can gain out of our rate side by just fixing our meter problem. But a bigger thing, and where we're really going to gain value, is increasing our tax base. And if you guys remember, we talked about this perhaps, I think when Davina was mayor, they instituted a TERS. And recently, Lionel and I met with some gentlemen and the mayor that were looking at building housing. And that TERS project, I would recommend you guys look at it because it is the answer. It is an answer to that. And it was a little, probably more than what was realistic, but as an example, the TERS is a tax reinvestment zone where it recoups development dollars for flat work from a tax base to cover that for the developer as an incentive to come in and build. And in the model that was created, as an example, it showed the city of Pearsall gaining $100 million in tax base. Now, that's a little far reaching. I mean, we'd have to have tremendous growth to do that, but it is TERS zones that are commercial and residential. And guys, part of, the civic pride and everything else is, we've got to have safe streets, we've got to have good housing, we've got to have jobs, and we've got to have schools. And so housing is one of those important parts of that. And if we can attract some builders to come in and build in these TERS, which is already established and it's co-partnered with the county, and the county, I believe, is still on board with that. And so, again, if we get, this is, realistically, there's no way we could probably grow 100 million in 20 years, but if we grow, 25 million, I mean, it is substantial, and the county receives their share of those taxes as well. So it is something that the council back in those days put a lot of work in, and it's in place, and it is ready for us to explore. Another reason why we probably need to focus on economic development, to get some people to pinpoint that and highlight our, again, lower cost of living, good rates at this particular time. But it is a great question. It's something I think we talked about at length at the meeting on Saturday. What can we do to increase that, to build Pearsall, to make things better? And so that, I'm telling you, that is a really good vehicle that's in place for us to utilize and move forward. So I'd love for us to do that and start by getting some affordable housing in right away. And then two, on employees leaving, just my comment, and I certainly want everybody else to comment about that. Last year, you guys put together a great budget that said one of the pillars were to invest in our in personnel, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that done with the salary survey, and the objective is to try and create the financial incentive where they want to stay. We can't keep them location. You can't keep everybody, but I believe that that's a step in the right direction. So always be a problem. I'd love to see stability. I'd love to see our police chief, our city manager, our finance director stay as long as possible, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Our city clerk as well. But so anyway, I think this is a step in that direction. But anyway, good questions, and they're things that we all think about. I would, I'd like everybody to have a chance to talk about these things. And one of the things that's really important for Fred and the staff is that we do, and this is the time, James, in other words, that we do our major trimming. And so yes, it is. We're looking at a tax increase. I think, there's not an action item, but we need to give a signal